Louisville, right? He checked before I came down there, but I'd be sent home. Louisville was actually a little more live than I thought. You know, I didn't know it was going to be as fast paced. I had a chance to go downtown yesterday, and there's a lot of good food here. I'm all about food, and I was very impressed. But I'm also impressed with some of the conversations that I've had with real estate agents in Mona originally while I was down here, because you have a very, very great market when it comes to housing, comparative to the kind of products I'm going to talk to you about today, which each real estate agent in here, and it's my belief that you're going to be able to make more money by partnering with First Commonwealth, okay? But I want to start off by talking to you about understanding the First Commonwealth value proposition and how to produce the best client experience. So, in order for me to get into that, let's talk about wholesale, independent mortgage brokers in the wholesale space. So obviously there's a difference between mortgage banks, credit unions, right, and independent mortgage brokers. So I want you to think about is a majority of you probably do your insurance through a insurance broker, okay? The reason that you do it, with an insurance broker, one, probably because it's a family friend, right, relationship. But two, because the insurance broker has the ability to shop all of the best insurance rates for you through multiple carriers. It's the same aspect when you're talking about independent mortgage brokers, right? But the only difference is it has to do with the largest financial decision of an individual's life. So why would you not work with independent mortgage broker in that case? Which is the graph I'm going to show you here. So going back to 2016, you're going to see that the broker market share over the entire mortgage market was around, 14.61%. Steep climb up to 2022 to 22.25% market share for independent mortgage brokers. Now, as many of us would like our 401ks to look this way, but unfortunately, as of recently, that's not how it's going. So let's focus on the positives with this, right? There's a steep climb in what the market share growth was in regards to independent mortgage brokers. And you would ask yourself why, right? So a lot of people would say, well, everybody closed more loans between 2016 and 2022. Everybody got paid, so that's probably why. But I'm not necessarily talking about more units. I'm not talking about doing more loans. I'm talking about going and getting pieces of the market that we didn't otherwise have before, right? Creating loans when loans didn't exist. The reasons why is because people started to figure it out that you could do loans cheaper, faster, and easier all the time, not just every once in a while, right? And the ones that caught on are the ones that saw their business grow exponentially as well. So I want you to think about it as a real estate agent. If you were to partner with an independent mortgage broker at this time, yes, combined with the amount of units that you had an increase in, you also would have increased your market share as well. You would have stole market share from areas that you didn't have market share before by partnering with the independent mortgage broker, especially partnering with First Commonwealth, right? So now let's talk about how you can do it faster, easier, and cheaper all the time, okay? So it really starts off with the top three things in my mind that go into the value proposition of First Commonwealth. One is going to be the unlimited support. Two is going to be the unmatched client experience. And three, we're going to talk about improved home affordability. Now, we're talking about unlimited support. So UWM is overstaffed by design. That's always been our slogan, right? But we also want to be an extension of any of our partners' offices. So First Commonwealth is literally one of the top mortgage brokers out of the 10,000 mortgage brokers that we have signed up new business with UWM. They're the ones meeting with their CEO, Matt Ishfield, on a regular basis to discuss changes in the industry and also feedback that comes directly from real estate agents on how to make your lives easier and your lives better, right? So you are kind of in the presence of greatness when you're talking to these ladies and gentlemen, right? And I can say that. But one thing I do want to let you know is this. And in saying that, in regards to the partnership that First Commonwealth has with UWM, which is extensive, that means that we are a direct extension of their office. That's the way that we see the partnership work with First Commonwealth, right? So I'll give you an example. You know, we have about 6,000 and 7,000 individuals in one building, right? The closest comparison, people say, look at Google campus. I think our campus is better. But when you walk in there, everybody is so happy. People leave there, it's like, why the hell is everybody so damn happy here? I think I want to quit my job and start working here, right? But it's a great environment because culture is so extremely important to us, right? And what's great about partnering with First Commonwealth, the culture is extremely important to them as well. Now, when we go, when you look at some of these numbers here, we have 2,000 underwriters in-house, 2,000 plus, okay? And so you ask yourself, okay, why would you have so many underwriters? Well, UWM has been the #1 overall lender for 2 years in a row, the #1 wholesale lender for almost a decade now. So Rocket, Chase, no bank, nobody does more mortgages in the United States of America than UWM. A lot of people don't know that. Why? Because we don't advertise UWM. We are here on behalf of First Commonwealth and the mortgage brokers, so we help them advertise themselves, thus help advertising you to be able to get more business, right? But here's one unique thing about having 2,000 underwriters in-house, is when you look at how big mortgage companies are, we have more underwriters in-house than entire mortgage companies have overall employees. So that's a great start, because they're the decision makers on who determines the creditworthiness of your buyers. Now, with 2,000 underwriters, how do you control the communication? Well, we allow open communication at all times, right? So any loan officer at First Commonwealth can pick up the phone right now and call their dedicated underwriting team that's dedicated to them, call the underwriting VP that's dedicated to them, senior team lead designated to them, in between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, what's another unique thing about UWM is we monitor and we have stats that we keep track of, metrics that we keep track of on how often people miss phone calls and how often people answer phone calls. It's called no call left behind. So the percentage of answered phone calls in underwriting out of the 2,000 plus is over 98% answer rate, right? So I want you to think about, when you have all the loan originators that are calling you and asking for, let's go to lunch, let's have coffee or something like that. I just want to tell you how sweet I am at my job and that I answer the phone when you call me, right? That's really why I want to meet with you. And that's what typically happens. You hear the same old story to the point to where you probably stop taking those meetings because essentially they're saying the same thing all the time. But as you can see, we're already focusing on that where it really counts, right? For one, if you were to call an underwriter, if you were to call a loan originator at a bank and you say, hey, listen, I want to know what's going on with the income, and when are we going to clear this income contingency, when is there approval, ask the underwriter what's going on. They're going to tell you, well, okay, let me call the intermediary first, and then they're going to call the underwriter, and then they're going to call this person, right? We allow all those steps to be taken out to allow First Commonwealth to make that direct connection with the underwriter, to give you the complete transparency, which also adds confidence to any transaction that you're doing, okay? Now, another thing, when it comes to technology, all of you in this room are going to be leaving being able to work more efficiently due to partnering with First Commonwealth from the technology that UWM has invested in for many years. Okay, I've been there for about 11 years now, and our CEO Matt Ishbia has been talking about technology since I started working there, and I really didn't understand why he was so adamant about investing in technology when it's like, look, just invest in these interest rates, man. I mean, people just want low interest rates, people want low payments, put all that money into that. But that was my simple thinking at that point. But the way that he was thinking about, once again, how to do things faster, cheaper, easier. Well, you see where interest rates are right now, right? Which causes what's called margin compression, which means that people are forced to essentially take a hit on their money while still doing the same amount of transactions. So you're expected to take a loss. But not if you do things cheaper, close twice as many loans in half the amount of time with half the amount of effort. That means you're doing twice as many units, you might be getting paid less, but if you're doing twice as many units, that actually means you got a raise. But you only do that through technology. And that's what we invested billions into technology. And we have 1,000 team members that are at First Commonwealth's disposal to be able to create technology that you can go out there and leverage as a real estate agent. Now we have 500 team members in closing. So a lot of people will look at that number and say, okay, well look, if you got 7,000 individuals in one building, and you're #1 lender in the country, then obviously you're gonna have a whole bunch of closers. And I say, I agree, but I also disagree in this point. Is we allow First Commonwealth to draw their own documents at clear to close, right? They have the control and the consistency. Look, if they get a clear to close at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, they can balance with title, or they can balance with escrow, and be able to get that closing package to the closing table like that on the spot. Truly table funding, right? No funding authorization, right? So having that amount of control is extremely important. But what these 500 plus individuals are there for are only to support First Commonwealth in being able to have a successful closing. So when you're working with First Commonwealth and they have 500 team members to support them just to close loan, it's going to be pretty hard to fail at that point, right? So you can consistently have closings be a celebration. Because once again, let's be honest, before we go in there, we're doing one of these Hail Marys, and saying, please, let's hope this thing goes the right way. Yes. All the time, right? Either we're anticipating things not to go right, or we're predicating everything on a hope that it does go right. Where in working with First Commonwealth, you can expect things to go right, okay? So now, let's talk about what processor assisted. So, we all know what processors do when it comes to, the mortgage process. What they do is, they go and they get the third-party documentation, and they get the income, they get the assets, and they get all the documents, stack it up, give it to an underwriter, so the underwriter can review and determine the creditworthiness of that buyer. Now, as a real estate agent, and anyone that has produced a lot of transactions, if you were to have 20 transactions in a month, okay, and that would come true for a lot of us, you would not be smart to give all 20 transactions to one individual. We would all know that. We would never do that. We would never give all 20 transactions to one loan originator. Like, if anything happens, that would be on me. That was a dumb move for me to do that, right? Because capacity is always going to be an issue. You can't expect one company to take all transactions and do them all the right way, all the time, and not expect for something bad to happen, right? And then you would have to be accountable for that. And it really comes to capacity. So for example, when you're talking to a loan originator at a bank in November, their tone about what they're able to accomplish is a lot different than what they say they can accomplish in July, due to the market. Right, it's purchase season, so things are different. So you have to accept mediocrity at that point and say, okay, you were 4 days turn times November, now you're telling me that you're 7 days because it's summertime, which is okay, because that's what happens every year. But that's not what happens with First Commonwealth. Why? Because once again, we have departments that are here to assist First Commonwealth, assist you in not having capacity issues. So what Processor Assist is a team of individuals that are here to only take all the small, tedious things off of their operations plates. So we'll go get the homeowner's insurance, we'll go get the condo docs, we'll go get the title, we'll go get the payoff. So if we're going to get this third-party documentation, I think we can all agree that capacity most likely isn't going to be an issue for the operations team, because the operations team is going to be able to concentrate on all the things that are most relevant to a file. So you can go and give First Commonwealth 20 loans right now, and operationally capacity will not be an issue because they have a team of 160 plus team members that are extension of their office to ensure that capacity will not be an issue, right? And it will be a dream world. It's almost like a unicorn situation. It's almost like the stars are aligned. If at one point in your career that you find one person that you could blindly just throw every single contract that comes to you and trust the fact they're all going to get done in the manner that you expect. Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you does exist, right? But I'm going to continue to walk you through how that happens. If I just left right now, you're like, okay, you talked a good game, I need a little bit more. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more. Now, let's talk about that client experience for a second. So, even if UWM took the scenic route, 1 to 2 days max on initial underwriting, okay? I've been there for 11 years, and I can tell you that I've only seen it happen once, and that was when, what was that, January 8th, 2019, where we came out with the craziest pricing that anyone's ever seen in the industry, and we blew ourselves up and got 6,000 loans in one day. So, and once again, that's why we'll never let that happen again. That's why you see 2,000 underwriters in here. So we're prepared for anything, right? We almost battle tested ourselves in doing that. Now, when you go and you look at the average submission to CTC, so our Chief Growth Officer announced this in our Wednesday sales meeting yesterday, that we're doing 30 loans a month right now. We're doing 30 loans, actually we did like 28,000 loans last month, with an average submission to clear to close of 13.6 days. Right? So you can only imagine what First Commonwealth is doing. If we're doing it with 30,000, I'm telling you, I promise you, man. If we're doing 30,000 loans in a month and we have an average of 13.6 days, the industry average is 38 to 42 days, and I'm being generous there. That's the Fannie Mae data, right? So I want you to think about when I was talking about faster, easier, cheaper, you're seeing how this happens. Now, as a real estate agent, every lender, after you give them a purchase contract, essentially the steps within the process are the same everywhere that you go. Okay, you give a loan originator to bank purchase contract on Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to take an entire day for those first 4 steps to get into underwriting. So if you start on Monday, no chance of that going into underwriting until Thursday, which means at best you're seeing 4-day underwriting turn time. So when that buyer has to wait through the weekend, that's 2 weeks in it. You can say well, it's only been 4 business days. They don't care about that. I know I didn't when I bought my house. If I'm going through that weekend, all the plans that I had to have fun, there's something in the back of my mind where I'm not having fun. I'm faking it right now. Because I'm really trying to hope that my first house that I'm buying is going to work. But I have to wait through this weekend to see if it happens. So then that underwrite comes out on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. You start on Monday last week. Now what's unique about working with First Commonwealth is this. Is if you were to give the purchase contract to anyone at First Commonwealth at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Monday, by 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that same Monday, the loan is going to be in underwriting most likely. Right? Same day into underwriting. And don't be surprised if it comes out of underwriting before the end of that same day. It happens all the time. It's not necessarily an anomaly to see you give a purchase contract to a loan originator at First Commonwealth and end up in the morning and end up seeing an initial approval by 5 o'clock. It's kind of wild, right? So to be able to work with that kind of speed, time kills deals, one, right? Time will kill deals. The more time that a loan is in process, the more time stuff can go wrong. So to protect your reputation, to be able to get loans done that quickly, only provides reputation protection for you as a loan originator and as a real estate agent, right? So now, let's talk about tools and exclusives, okay? So in regards to tools and exclusives, this is part of the technology that I want to let you know is going to give you, a real estate agent, an advantage after you walk out here, okay? But I'm going to tell you a little bit of story about my life. So it was about 2015 and 16. My wife was 3 months away from having her first child. We were living in a 1-bedroom apartment at that time, okay? And I think anybody that knows that if you're having your first child and you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, there's a certain discussion that gets had, right, with you and your wife, okay? I didn't initiate that conversation, of course. She initiates this conversation. And at the time, you know, I was a little rough around the edges, and I wasn't who I am today, to put it like that. So my credit was at about a 608 credit score. I think it was 608, 612 at that time. And I knew my money wasn't where I needed to be in order to get the kind of house that she wanted, right? And I was trying to talk logically here, but she wasn't having it. She said, we need more space, period. I don't care. It's a house, or a house. So it's okay. All right. So, you know, I had to call one of my buddies that can send a loan, a semi-loan, to a lender that can go down to 608 because you don't get to go on to 608. You go down to 620. So he sent my loan to Pacific Union, right? And at Pacific Union, things work a little bit different. I was going for a house in an area called Fraser. And the school systems in Fraser, I didn't want my kids to go to that school, to that school system. So really what was happening is I was buying 2 houses when I was buying 1, because I knew I had to get my money up with before she was going into school, so I could get her in the school system that I wanted. So that really wasn't the feeling that I wanted, right? And there was no really explaining that to anybody. But when I go to buy my first house, I'm already thinking about how I need to get a raise to go and get my second house. Which a lot of you in here have had to set those proper expectations for buyers and tell them, listen, I mean, I know that you want to live here, but we got to pull back the expectations a little bit, but this area is good too, I promise. If you look at the rating online, I can tell you the school system is still pretty decent, right? And you got to set those expectations. And that's what Tammy was saying when I was talking to her earlier is, you know, never lie about anything. Always be honest. And those are the honest conversations that you have to have. And that was the honest conversation I knew I had to have with myself. So we go into process, you know, I'm on this loan originator for a while. And he calls me while I'm at work and says, okay, I'm sending you the e-sign. So go ahead, finish that e-sign, we'll get this thing going. So I see the DocuSign link coming in email. I finish it. I'm like, okay, cool, this is easy. She said, you ain't that bad. All right, cool. All right, let's go. It was about 10:30 in the morning, okay? And then I finish it, so I said, okay, I just finished it. So what do you need from me now? He goes, well, you only finished the e-sign. I'm like, that's why you said finish the e-sign, finish the e-sign. He said, well, there were documents that were attached to the email. Did you print those out and sign them? And I'm like, no, I did not print those out and sign them because you sent me a DocuSign. Therefore, I thought the document was being the DocuSign, right? But no, I had to wet sign the 4506T. I had to wet sign the borrower certification, print it out while I'm at work, okay? Scan it back, send it back. And I'm like, okay, that's 2 times I had to interrupt work today, right? So he tells me, all right, well, I'm gonna call you after I run a pre-underwriting system and tell you what kind of documents that we need. I said, okay. So probably around like 2 o'clock, right? Around 2 o'clock, he calls me and he asked me for a drove of things. I mean, it was a ridiculous amount of documentation that I had to get. And me being in the mortgage industry and work with UWM where we make things so much easier, I knew what I really needed and what I didn't need. But this particular lender wanted these. So, for example, there are a lot of lenders that are out there, a lot of banks that are out there, that regardless of if you're W-2 or not, they're gonna want 1040s. They're gonna want full tax returns. For what reason, I couldn't tell you. But I knew I'm gonna have to go talk to my boss right now and tell him I need an hour and a half to myself, leave me alone, I'm going through a mortgage, trust me, right? And I took that time when I was at work for like the 3rd time, and same day, and we got all this documentation, right? Because there's 3 aspects of the loan process that buyers will always remember and never forget. One, that's gonna be the application process. You got buyers that anticipate dreading that process to the point where they'll take paid time off work in anticipation to doing a mortgage. Or 2, how many times did you call me while I was at work during the underwriting process, okay? And then 3, the closing process, right? Was I able to celebrate, or did I walk out, wipe the sweat off my head, and just being happy that it was over? So in my case, it was extremely difficult, the upfront portion, right? And we went on back and forth. I went through that weekend. So we ended up getting a week. Then my return time, it was in the summer, and went through to the next week, right? And then when that approval came out, there were more conditions on there than items on my wife's Target receipt, okay? I'm not playing, she does not play. I make sure that I co-chair that visit into Target every time we move forward. But I'm just gonna tell you that it was a problem for me. But once again, I had to go into work and I had to say, okay, I need another hour. Every time I got an approval, I need an hour to go find all these documents. I don't even know where to find these things. And this happened on and on repeatedly until about 45, 42 days later when I got a clear close. And the reason I want to tell you this story is because I had never purchased a house before, so I see the difference of what I was selling. Right? I could sell anything. You give me a product, I could sell it. So I was just selling at that time, but I hadn't felt it. So I felt it then. Right? My job actually became easier after I lived it. And one thing I know is if I was able to work with First Commonwealth, one, my credit was good enough to do that back then, but if I was able to work with First Commonwealth, they would have used a technology called DOCUS technology that we have at UWM, okay, to where they can click a button and literally it will go get the full e-sign federal state compliant disclosures that, look, you're on hole 1 on a golf course, you literally could finish the full e-sign before your approach shot on the same hole, right? So that's much easier than me having to say, okay, you know what, I'm on the golf course. I'll get the rest of the documentation when I'm done, right? You don't have to deal with that. And then let's go ahead and let's talk about the income. So over a dozen different income types can be digitally and instantly retrieved through hitting the DOCUS button inside of our website. So we're talking about self-employed income, we're talking about Social Security income, we're talking about pension income, we're talking about dividend interest income. With the click of a button, instantly retrieved, okay? And then the same thing with the assets, automated asset verification. The link goes out to the buyer clicks on that link, we verify the assets, immediately generating a 60-day transaction history, which allows the mortgage broker or First Commonwealth to approve those assets to send directly to us. So literally, all the things, all the calls of work I was talking to you about, I literally wouldn't have had, your buyers would not have, by working with First Commonwealth. And the technology that we give them access to that you should be able to leverage when you're working with them, right? So that portion of the process is extremely easy. Now, the initial CD and the appraisal are 2 reasons why a majority of closings do not happen on time, right? Appraisals, look, if somebody tells you it's gonna be 27 days, nothing to do about that. You just accept it, swallow your pride and move on. Just set the right expectations. CDs, almost all the banks that you work with, you have to complete everything on the file, so pretty much get clear to close, and hurry up and wait for the 3 days. So you think you're done, finally, 29 days later, at best, 35 days later, and then now you're waiting another 3 days for this unique cool-off period. But what's unique about working with First Commonwealth is this, is we allow them to provide alternative documentation in order to get the CD out upon initial approval. So we spoke about the fact that scenic route, 1 to 2 days on initial. So as a real estate agent, ask yourself the last time that you gave a purchase contract to a loan originator on Monday, and you saw the approval the approval and you saw the CD cool-off period start by Tuesday or Wednesday. So no matter what, we already spoke about the fact that the upfront mortgage process has been cut in half, right? For all agents that are in here and partnering with First Commonwealth. But also, no matter what, the tangible benefit that you could leave with right now is you're 3 days faster, no matter what, than you were before you woke up this morning. You're 3 days faster than working with First Commonwealth. Due to the fact that the CD is no longer an issue. It's not something that you necessarily have to wait 3 days at the end of. So you can see how there's a pattern in helping you be able to increase your ability to work faster, preventing issues that protect your reputation, okay, and partnering with First Commonwealth, right? Now we spoke about closing earlier. So in regards to closing, there are multiple ways to close loans, work with First Commonwealth. One, we talked about the fact that we allow them to draw their own docs at clear close. So if there's a clear close at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, they can go start our system and bounce the title and have the closing package everything out, right? I mean, I know as a loan originator, I've had to, set realistic expectations. It's June, it's July, and that agent's calling in that favor. I was talking a big game with that coffee 6 months ago, talking about all this pull I had with the company that I work with. And then, they called in that favor. Hey, listen, it's Monday. I know we weren't supposed to close until Friday, but the buyers called and said there's an emergency, so I'm calling the favor in right now. He said, you had juice, I need you to move this closing. That's what I need you to do. I'm like, dang, why couldn't you call me in December? And then, you know what I have to do? I have to say, all right, well, I'm going to do whatever I can. Okay, it's July, right? As you know, things are a little different to move around. So I have to see if we have any openings in the schedule or any closers available to be able to move this up, right? But I'm going to be 100% honest with you when I call you. It looks like the lock is still good, so you don't have anything to worry about there. And then I act like I'm going to ask somebody, and then I come back and I tell her, I try everything I could, okay? But good news is, once again, we're not losing money on this, something like that. So the closing's still going to happen on time. Apologize, right? And as a real estate agent, you've had to make that call to ask for the exception of what we're closing up, and you've had a response that said, we can't move this closing up. We don't have the capacity to move the closing up. But if you call before 3:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and ask anybody at First Commonwealth, they're going to ask you, well, can they just come in today? Can they just do it today? Same-day closings is not an anomaly in working with First Commonwealth. Either you want it to happen or you don't. Right? So having that level of flexibility and control over the closing process, once again, is only going to help you as a real estate agent, make you look good. Because at the end of the day, the egg is on your face, but you also receive the flowers. You also have to have that conversation with loan originators. The last time you cuss a loan originator out is because they were not acknowledging the fact that you're the last person somebody sees. Right? So why not let First Commonwealth accentuate the fact that you are the last person somebody sees, and we want people to see you in the light of getting those flowers and you being the sunshine in the process. That's what partnering with First Commonwealth will do, right? Having this level of flexibility and control. Also, you have full virtual e-closings as well. You get buyers that are laying in bed, don't have to get out of bed, and finish closing on their home, right there from their cell phone. Or you can do a hybrid virtual e-closings as well, right? Because I know when I go and close a loan, no matter if it goes perfectly, it's not perfect to me if I got to sign 78 documents, right? That's just not fun. That's the least fun part. I want to get in and get out. So imagine if your buyers were able to do 90% of the signatures electronically from their phone and walk in, there's only 3 documents for them to sign and walk out. That's a celebration. That's what we're looking for, celebrating at closings, right? No prayers needed. No prayers needed. So let's think about this for a second. So we have a lot of experienced real estate agents in here. Okay, and where's Tammy at? We're in here, where you at?
She's on our team call.
Okay, so I'm going to call on everybody then. So, a lot of you have attended closings before. How many people have attended a closing in here before? Okay, almost everybody, right? Okay. How many people have had the privilege of walking in having the joy of seeing your buyers sitting in there this excited to buy their house. Like they're excited to buy the house. You guys have seen this. It's why you do it. It's why you wake up in the morning to do this job, right? And that's why I do it as well, okay? We want to make our buyers smile at the closing table and have it be an enjoyable experience. Now, how many people in here? Right? How many people in here? And let's be honest, you know what's funny? This seems, in your mind, this seems to be more frequent than the smiling faces. Right? I mean, let's be honest. Every time that, you know, I show these two slides, it's funny because I'll get minimal participation when I'm talking about the smiling part, but then when I'm talking about this Ben Affleck meme, everybody's like, 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Right? And that's essentially what I went through. Okay, so I did end up getting clear to close. Clear to close happened, and I just wanted to get this thing done. And then when I asked him, you know, okay, once again, it happens to me at the beginning of the week, like it always happens, right? I said, okay, I want to close tomorrow. Let's close tomorrow. He hit me with that excuse. Summer came back, disappointed me, said that there's no openings for the closing. So we had to schedule for the next week. It was like Tuesday next week. So me and my wife were excited. We got our box of frames in, 2 plastic wine glasses. I was smoking Black Miles back then. A little bit different. It was kind of different back then. So, you know, got my money up, my credit score's up now, so things are good. So me and my wife were walking in there, we're ready to party. We're excited. This is the first time that we've ever been able to do something like this. We did not assume that we were going to be homeowners. No, I didn't, right? So I'm happy, okay? And I'm going in there, you know, I walk in, I see this, you know, this white board table here, it's empty. And I'm there, if not early, but I know damn well I'm there on time. So I should not have to be waiting for anything. So I walk in there, and it's empty table. I say, how you doing? Please show I'm watching here for my closing. I do work for UW-Wyndham, so don't try to play me. I know how things work, right? So he said, okay, go ahead and take a seat. I said, okay, fine. So I take a seat. And me and the wife, you know, we're chairs in, we're talking about what we were doing in the backyard, all this stuff, right? There was a pool, there was an above ground pool. We were fighting over who's gonna clean it, right? So listen, if you're staying home, you're cleaning it, okay? I don't even know why we're arguing about this. Right. So yeah, right. Once again, I lost anyways. Yeah, I'm losing, you know what I'm saying? She took care of me though. She helped me get me to where I'm at, so I'll do whatever she asked me to do. So we're sitting there having a good time, you know, and then 45 minutes goes by, and I start getting impatient. I'm like, all right, something's wrong. Okay, I was really having fun, forgetting that it's been 45 minutes, and I got here on time, which means we are late. So I get up and I ask, I say, okay, is there a problem? Like, what's going on? There's nobody at this table back here, so what are we doing? And he said, well, you know, Mr. Washington, I mean, from what I understand, you know, you're in the industry, right? I'm like, yes, I am in the industry. And she says to me, well, we have to wait for authorization. Everyone else has to wait for authorization. And that's when I was like, damn. I'm like, that's what I've been selling against for like 4 years. We don't have to do that. So I want you to think about what funding authorization means to your buyers. I'm going to tell you what funding authorization means to me. One, it meant I don't want to drink nothing else. Don't talk to me. I'm going outside. I'm getting some fresh air because I don't want to get kicked out of this place because I was pissed off. Because what that meant to me was more time for more problems. And me being in the mortgage industry, I went to open my phone. I started pulling up the bank statements I sent to make sure the URL was at the bottom. I'm sitting here pulling up the pay stubs I sent to make sure that they weren't expired. I'm sitting trying to see if there's any large deposits. I'm rewriting my whole damn file. Right? In my mind, that's what's going on. All I'm thinking about is all the ways that this is not going to work. And I'm in the mortgage industry, so could you imagine what happens to your buyers when they're like, you have to wait for us to be authorized to give you the money we told you we were going to give you when we gave you a clear to close a week ago? So there's a double clear to close with you guys? I guess I don't understand. Right? And what's great about working with First Commonwealth is this. And so we do everything prior to docs, not prior to funding. So everything that you have experienced as far as prior to funding conditions, we do prior to docs, prior to closing docs. So when you go into the closing table, you don't have to wait for those kind of things because everything is already done. Also, the wire is already there before you get into the office. So you can do an early wire in which the wire will go out there the day before, or If the closing is scheduled the day before, then that means as soon as the bank's open, by 9 o'clock, it takes about 90 minutes to transfer through the banks through wire to the title company, okay? So 10:30. So when you walk into the title company, the funds are already there. So you're walking into the funds, you're walking into the keys on the table, you're walking into the checks cut. That's how you have a celebration, right? And that's what we're looking for. And this is something that I'd like to bring up, is this. As I started to ask a lot more questions to real estate agents over the past, more emotionally driven questions, right? I want to dive down into the roots of why people do this job. Some of the experiences that you've had as a real estate agent, right? So I started asking, what is the most memorable and best transaction that you've ever been a part of? And I typically get two different responses depending on where I am in the country, okay? The response you're going to get in California is much different than the response you're going to get in Kentucky, or Michigan, or some of the West Coast or East Coast, right? Most common is I get this extravagant, emotionally filled story. Okay, the real estate agent, looked at me and was like, "Well, are you serious? Like, what are you gonna do with my cool ass story? Like, are you gonna try and do the same thing I've done before? Because I'm gonna give you a hell of a story." That's kind of how they came off. Like it was kind of somewhat of a detractor of my question. I said, "No, I just want to know. Right? I just want to know." And then so she started telling me, she's like, "All right, well, it was 2019, which was 3 years ago. The closing was at 3:30. Stupid title. It was 75 degrees outside." Like she was there yesterday. Like literally, it was a memory that she would never forget. And listen, anytime that you have an emotional response to something, whether it be sad or whether it be happy, you do remember it like it was yesterday. You really remember how the room smelled, right? You remember how the sun was shining. So she was giving me all these details. And she said, when I walked into the title company that day, it was Mary and John, right? Mary and John, married couple. As soon as they saw me, they started crying, grown adult tears, like I had took a bullet for them or something. It was crazy. I got kind of uncomfortable. Like I thought something was wrong. But then she said to me, she was like, but they were crying of happiness and how much they felt privileged to have achieved their goal, and I was responsible for helping them do that, right? And I was like, damn, I guess this is why I do this, right? It reminded me of why I do the job, is watching people cry like that because of what I did for them. And it literally added 10 more years to my career trying to replicate something like that. And I said, okay, so why didn't you replicate something like that? I mean, one, I complimented the story. I said, listen, I didn't expect you to say all that, right? But that was great, that was amazing, But it seems like you cracked the code. I mean, stars aligned. I mean, what's going on? Why didn't you just do it again? And then that's kind of where the excuses started to come out to say, okay, well, once again, like I told you, it was sunny outside, there was no clouds in the sky. Right? The appraisal came back in less than 10 days. It was 30% down. It was a 30% debt to income ratio. So it just made sense that we would get so lucky that this would happen. And then that's really where things started to turn for me and how I communicated to agents, how I communicated to loan originators about what the true value of working with companies like First Commonwealth is. Is what you think can only happen every once in a while can happen all the time. So when you look at this and you start to see the same day approvals by Edward, when you see the same day approvals by Emily, when you see the 7-day quick closes by Josh, when you see the 5-day CTCs by Emily, when you see the 4-day CTCs by Jim, when you see all of this, you see my man back here, right? The social media king, taking these pictures, huh? Don't you want to get lined up like that? Right? So that looks like celebrating to me. That's how every single one here closing should look, right? I don't care if people think that the key and everything with the picture is corny. Corny is good in this industry. You do it over and over again. You do it in repetition because that becomes your standard. Listen, I don't care how this looks. If every single one of my closings looks like this, then I guess I'm doing something wrong. I guess my question is, why aren't you a part of it? That would be my question, right? So let's take a look for a second. So I pulled some data from UWM's system. And this is the year-to-date, right? So you're looking at year-to-date, this is looking at 26 million. You're looking at First Commonwealth, 113 units. 113 units. Now, for that real estate agent that goes and tells me, listen, it wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was 30% down. But it made sense that we were able to accomplish such a feat. Well, damn, they did it 113 times this year. This company, First Commonwealth, did it 100. What was assumed to only happen every once in a while, they did 113 times in a row. So I guess I don't know much more proof that can be given in being able to dominate the client experience by just making the choice on who you partner with. At this point, unless you don't believe me, the best idea would be to partner with First Commonwealth. Now remember we were talking about how many calls your buyers get at work, okay? So if I was to work with First Commonwealth back when I first did my house, they have a 3.1 touches per file. What's that mean? What that means is each time documents are uploaded to the system and an underwriter has to go in and review it. But also that means that the mortgage company had to call the buyers to ask for those documents, right? Now one of these touches is actually uploading the file to get into initial underwriting. So I'm not gonna count that. So 2.1 times. So your buyers will only be called 2.1 times on average per process that you go into purchase contract with Commonwealth, right? Needless to say, that's a lot less times than how many times I was called when I did my mortgage initially. So once again, we're chipping away at the client experience, which, if making the right decision, only puts you in a position of success. And once again, the egg ends up on your face, but also you get the flowers. There's a lot of flowers being given to the people that close loans with First Commonwealth. Okay? Now, when you say it about yourself, it's bragging. When you say it about someone else, it's proof. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because those 4-day, 5-day, 7-day clear closes that I was showing you. It's called a bragging unit. So what UWM does is we want to be able to give not only loan originators the currency to go out there and share digitally, but we want the real estate agents to be able to do so as well. So if there's a 4, 5, 6-day clear to close, we're tagging you in it. We want you to be able to use this as a currency. Because for one, none of your peers or none of your friends would believe you if you posted a 4-day CTC. They call you liars, propaganda, why are you doing this, right? You're better than this to be out here lying like that, right? But if someone else says it about you, that's what sparks a curiosity. Okay, hold on a second, right? This real estate agent got a CTC the loan in 4 days, how did that happen, right? I want people to ask, how? Now, you do it 4 days, but then you do another loan with First Commonwealth, and then it happens in 6 days. Now somebody has to call you. Somebody has to call you, right? And that's the point, repetition. And here's one thing I want to bring up, is throughout my career, there's always been discussions about MSAs and relationships that people have with real estate agents and lenders. And I think that the value in an MSA is that's just less money that I have to spend to promote myself, right? And regardless of if I get a return on investment or not, it's not my investment, it's someone else's investment. So therefore, whatever happens is going to be a plus no matter what. But you get to see exactly what the return on your investment is when something like this happens, okay? And in building your reputation, there is no, I don't care if I got 25, 30 grand. You can't give me 30 grand to perform this. You can give any mortgage company $1 billion to help with their efficiencies. They're not going to be able to do this 3 times in a row in a year. So really, there is no amount of money that can compare to being able to boost your reputation to be able to close twice as many loans in half the amount of time and half the amount of effort. Can't buy love around here. But you can work your way through it. And through partnerships with the right people will allow you to do that, right? So now, let's talk about this. So when I was in Pittsburgh, I was looking out in the audience, and there was 2 individuals, okay, 2 ladies that were texting each other, and they were kind of snickering and giggling. Okay, I could tell that it had some detractors in the room that thought I was full of it. They couldn't wait until I got to question time. So once I got to the end, lady was dying to ask this question, dying. And I'm like, okay, ma'am, do you have a question? Go ahead, shoot, please, lay it on me. And then she goes, okay. She goes, yeah, I got a question. So you said that, you can get loans closed in 7 days, and 8 days, and 6 days. Is that correct? I'm like, yes, we can. He said, well, how do you get it on the appraisal then? And that's on me, right? Because I left that portion out, okay? That's a very important piece of the puzzle to validate the things that I was talking about. So we have something called Appraisal Direct, which is an appraiser network that we allow you to refer appraisers to, okay? The big problem during COVID and shortly after is the bids on appraisals. They're like, okay, well, look, I'll do it in 3 weeks, give me 12 months. I'll do it in 3 weeks, not 4. Okay, someone comes in, listen, you give me 1,600, I'll do it in 2 weeks. And that's how it's happening. I mean, you were seeing appraisals on a regular FHA, $250,000 house. In order to get it done in 3 weeks, you had to pay $1,200. So we want to put an end to all that. So what happens now is, one, those same appraisers, they don't get paid until the order is complete. So they're not getting paid for weeks on end, or sometimes even months, depending on your area, from the date that the order was presented, right? That's why they were bidding for so much. What we do is we pay the appraisers the normal amount, right, your $500-600, but they get it same day or within 24 hours of the order. So how it works is when an order goes up there, either someone decides to pick it up or someone decides not to, right? Because during that time, people were actually dropping your appraisal, like, no, I don't got time for this. And you had to go get someone else. So how many people do you think would go for the $500-600 they're gonna get today compared to the $1,500 they're gonna get in August? Everybody's going for that $500 they're gonna get today. So right now we have everybody fighting for your orders, which is why you see an overall 6.6 turn time from order date to completion date of appraisals, because they want to get paid. So that means, if you could, please everybody go ahead and scan this QR code, because if you scan this QR code, you can send this to any appraiser that you know, and they can sign up and be a part of the platform. And what that means is, when you go and you do a transaction with Commonwealth, what that means is that the order will go to the appraiser that's closest to the subject property, not to somebody that is 3 hours away coming in acting like they know the market when they don't, and all of a sudden your appraisers are coming in low, right? So make sure you're taking this link and you're sharing this link and putting yourself in a position to start improving the speeds of those appraisals, okay? Okay, now, let's talk about home affordability for a second. So, this is an example only, okay? This is an example only. And I'm gonna generalize this. So I do a lot of research on some of you that are in here, real estate agents that are in here. And also on that research, I see the lenders that you're using, okay? And the reason I do that, and the reason I have the money at the end, towards the end of my presentation, is because most people would lead with the savings and money. That's not what I'm about. That's not what First Commonwealth is about. I'm not saying something they can't do, but that's not what we're about. We're about, as a real estate agent, low interest rates does nothing for you, personally as a real estate agent. Us helping with your reputation, consistency, and transparency does something for you. So that's what we lead with that first and end up here. Now, when I price out loans inside the website of the lenders that you as real estate agents in here are using, okay? And on a 20% down compared to First Commonwealth, $168 in savings a month. 3% down, $198 in savings a month. 3% down, home affordability product, $230. 3% down, home possible, home ready, $251. We have what's called a 1% down. A 1% down. First Commonwealth has a 1% down up to $4,000. We'll cover the other 2%. Not DPA, it's a grant. They don't gotta pay the money back. There are people that you told they can't get a house 3 months ago that you need to call back and say, I could probably get you a house now. And it's based off area median income limit, right? So if they make equal to $67,760 or less, they qualify AMI-wise for the 1% down. So that's what there's two numbers to write down. So 100% AMI is $84,700. You know anybody that makes $84,700 or less, then you need to call First Commonwealth, because that's an incentivized pricing category for 3% down. Then also, if you have anyone equal to $67,760, that's a trigger for you to know that you need to call First Commonwealth, because it's a product you're not going to find anywhere else. And UWM is paying for that 2% all ourselves. So it's not fake money, this is real money. And this is for you as a real estate agent to have something to talk about. When you have somebody in that office and you're sitting there talking about, affordability, being realistic of the area that they can live, how much they're gonna have to put down, and then you have this in your back pocket, right? Really, buyers might be selling themselves short on how much they can afford. Because they find out about this program that you have access to when working with First Commonwealth, right? So now, remember I was talking to you about the affordability. I did not want to live in Fraser. I didn't want my kids to go, or my daughter to go to Fraser schools. So I had to hurry up, right? Figure out how to make more money, okay? Work away from this industry so I can afford another house. But if I was to work with First Commonwealth at that time, I would have had $23,000 more buying power, $31,000 more buying power, $34,000 more buying power, $36,000 more buying power on all those comprehensive to the programs that I was showing you here, okay? So same things, right? I just did the backwards math. So I want you to think about that. As a real estate agent, how many times have you had a conversation with a potential buyer? You have to set those right expectations. Hey, we're here, can't do this, but look at this house over here, right? If you gave them an extra $25,000, don't you think that you have a better chance of having these houses over here? So improve your chances of being a yes person, because no one likes having to be a no person. Increase how many times that you can say yes. And that happens in working with First Commonwealth. I mean, it's clear. This is actual math that I've done, right? Obviously, rates fluctuate every single day, but this gives you an understanding there is a significant difference in working with a bank and working with an independent mortgage broker. And now it's up to you. Now that you know, you do have a little bit more control and effect on home affordability than you thought previously. Now let's talk about a 2-1 buy down for a second. So I was looking into homes and kind of looking at the market before I presented today, and I noticed a lot of homes that are coming down on their sales prices to attract buyers. Okay, coming down $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, crazy, like $300,000 to $280,000. Now, this is how you as a real estate agent are really going to be able to set the tone. So what a 2-1 buy down is the note rate was 6.417 on the last screen. 2-1 buy down means in the first year is 2% less than the note rate. So 4.417 will be their interest rate for the whole first year, which means they're gonna save $436 on the scenario that I showed, and $5,243 for the year. 1% less in the second year, 5.417, $224, and then $2,689. So roughly $8,000 in savings in the first 2 years. So the same person that had their purchase price at $300,000 was going on to $280,000. But you come in and say, wait. Let's do this. Go back up to $290,000. Go up to $290,000. Make 10 more grand, because I got some for you. I got a program called the Temporary Buy Down, in which we will help with the mortgage payments for the first 2 years for the buyer if they buy this house. Is that legal? What are you talking about? Yes, it is. Now, don't walk up in an open house talking about racing the floors and not knowing what you're talking about. You're getting kicked out, okay? But when you're looking at this, that's a tremendous amount of savings. Tremendous amount of savings. Now, what's unique about the savings on a 2-1 buy down is when you go get seller concessions right now, you're getting that seller concessions to pay for title, cover escrows, whatever. Rates are extremely high, so no matter 100% fact, they're refinancing. 100% fact they're going to refinance the house. When you refinance the house, those savings are gone. They're gone. So it's almost like fake upfront savings. Because when you refinance the house, you lose all those savings. But with the 2-1 buy down, those savings actually go into an escrow account, that those savings are transferable to the next mortgage that you do if you do refinance the house. So that's something that a buyer just would not know. So if you're educating a buyer, that's how you establish trust immediately. Right? And so to be able to educate them on this, and also a seller to say, don't go down to 280, I'm gonna give you 10 grand. You know the value that you're providing a seller or a listing agent or anybody. So think about how many people will make more money because you're a real estate agent and knew about this. You make more money. All agents involved make more money. Sellers make more money. Buyer saves money, right? So this is a valuable program that will never get old. You just gotta know to talk about it, okay? So the moment that you start working with an independent mortgage broker, your buyers will save over the life of the loan $9,407. Minorities, low to moderate income families, $10,424. So on the second to last slide, I wanted to create this slide, and I think it's important. We spoke about the fact that you got loan originators blowing up the phone all the time, okay? Have lunch, have coffee, right? To a point to where someone sold the hell out of you, you went to lunch, you had that 15, 20 minutes, and they're like, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't have time for this. And I'm gonna help you to be able to determine on what loan originators that we're talking to, which ones are. I'm just gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna be flat out about it, okay? So let's talk about the value proposition that's provided by partnering with First Commonwealth. So, I kind of put it in the layman's terms here. So working with UW1, these are in short form, the things that I see at face value. Technology, speed, service, communication, low rates, affordable products, diverse portfolio, get more transaction opportunities, client retention, referrals, flexible, and client experience. That's Commonwealth. That's the list of them. It's pure greatness right there, right? But what's great about partnering with First Commonwealth is what you get out of the partnership, right? So next time that you have a discussion with a loan originator talking about what they can and can't do, if they don't have something like this, if they can't list off things that matter like this, there's nothing to talk about. And this is a light list. So you as a real estate agent today are leading with speed, client experience, transparency, consistency, home affordability, flexibility. You're getting more transaction opportunities. You're creating client retention. You're getting more referrals. You're protecting your reputation. And something that no one will say in this industry is process predictability. You get that finally. And I think from what I've shown you so far, you can see how easy it is to predict that success will happen through the tools and exclusives that I show that you're going to be able to leverage through working with Commonwealth. You can see the path on how you predict a process is going to be successful for you and partner with them at this point, right? So if there's anything that I would want you to take a picture of is this. If somebody comes at you and say, hold on a second, can you do any of this? Can you do this? Can you do this? No? Okay. All right, we don't need time. Right? And then so now, what do your buyers receive? So your buyers, once again, you're the face that everyone is left with, right? So your buyers think this of you. You're the easy process. There's no cause of working with you as a real estate agent. It's paperless working with you.